All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in today. I'm very excited. I'm here with Christy Ann, and she's going to share with us a little bit about her journey through living with chronic illness. And just from talking to her, I know that she has a really unique perspective on this, and I think is going to touch on some things that maybe are not always talked about and that can really be beneficial to you on whatever journey you're on. So if you're listening, you may be dealing with a thyroid issue, since that's the people that I typically work with, but this is really for anyone. Doesn't have to be thyroid related. So I hope that no matter where you are, that this is beneficial for you, and I have no doubt that it will be. So Christy Ann, thank you so much for being here and sharing your story with us today. If you want to just tell us just a little snapshot about you, maybe where you're from, just so we can kind of get a glimpse into who you are.
Well, I live in Utah, but my heart is in California in the Bay Area. I left it behind when I moved here. So yeah, mom of 4 kids.
Very good. Very good. Awesome. Well, if you want to just give us a little, I know we're going to kind of take twists and turns with this, however it needs to go, but if you want to start by sharing a little bit about your health journey, kind of where you were at the very beginning, when did things kind of shift from okay to not okay, and what that was like at the very beginning and kind of the thick of that.
Well, to really understand my health journey, and I'll try to say this pretty quickly, you have to go back to my childhood. So I was adopted, and my mom always said that I was really stressed, wouldn't go to sleep, so she'd have to rock me or rub my arms. So just to get the picture that I was kind of a really anxious, stressed baby. Um, I dealt with some uh, verbal abuse at home and bullying at school and being behind in school. So this kind of paints this picture of this really scared little girl, and everyone telling me that I was super sensitive and that I was okay, but I never felt okay. But just keep going. You get used to things. You think that's the way your life is because you don't know any better. So fast forward, to my adulthood, I started having kids, and it wasn't until my first baby that I was my doctor had suspected that I had postpartum depression. And he was an extremely tough baby. He had colic and he would cry and cry. So it was not a good combination at all. But I didn't get really fully diagnosed with depression until 2010, day before my 31st birthday. I went in, they diagnosed me with celiac and depression and anxiety all on the same day.
Wow. That's
yeah. I didn't know what I was going to eat. I didn't know what I was going to do. I felt completely defeated, completely frustrated. Didn't know I was supposed to go out to eat that night. Didn't know what I was going to eat. It was just an emotional. I just remember bawling at the office, and finally, luckily I had a friend there, so she drove because there's no way I could have driven.
wow.
And I went home and talked to my husband, and I bawled there, and I started throwing things away. I mean, it was just this whirlwind of what am I going to do now? And I've since really started to dive into that with people, because that's always like where people are stuck, is they get this diagnosis and they feel like it's them, like they somehow are, that it's their fault, or that they are the disease. And I want to reach out and say that's not true at all. It's so outside of you. It's just, I've learned that it's a result of unresolved trauma or a thought pattern that just becomes chronic. And so depression, that's all it is. It's a negative rumination kind of thing. And that's kind of what happens. And so it's freeing when you I actually have an avatar for each of my diseases.
Wow.
So I'm still looking for a picture for them so that I can actually see it as like a person.
Yeah.
but that it's like a visitor. Like I'm like, oh, so fibromyalgia is visiting today, Freddie fibromyalgia or whatever, and like I imagine what it's like and what that person needs, and then once it gets what it needs, then I can tell it to go. And so
Mm,
I've learned to take the power away from it.
right.
'Cause
Oh, that's such a healthy way of looking at it. Like that gives you back control over it.
yeah, I mean, I didn't start out that way. Don't get me wrong. I
Mhm.
mean, this is a 10-year journey that I've been on to get to this place, um, but I no longer feel like my symptoms and my disease, or even like the identity boxes that we place ourselves in,
Mhm.
um, are real. That we can step out of them.
Yes.
So,
So, wow. So what were kind of the first steps you took um to switching that mindset and kind of taking back? I'm sure maybe it's hard to pinpoint exactly when that was happening. The transformation takes happens over time, but can you remember anything significant?
oh, definitely. I mean, I'm a very faith-driven person, but when you are so in the dark and so you feel so alone and so lost, because nobody, like, at least I felt like nobody was in my place. And it wasn't until we moved away from the neighborhood, because I was being bullied in that neighborhood, believe it or not. Um, and I really believe that I was driven here for a reason, because I met these amazing women that some of them had depression and they were battling depression without medication. And so, like, when I started hearing Me Too, that's kind of when it really started to shift for me. Like, I
Mm,
was thinking, wow, if somebody who, because one of the ladies had lost her child and went into a depression, and so she kind of became my mentor, because I just wanted to know. I'm a very curious person,
mm,
and so I just wanted to know everything about depression. And then I really started diving in, learning about depression and anxiety and fibromyalgia. So I armed myself with knowledge. I would caution to be careful going down that rabbit hole, just because it can get really discouraging, as far as like all the information out there. But I'm definitely a proponent of arming yourself with knowledge, and finding a tribe, finding someone who's going to say Me Too, who's going to get you,
mm.
um, because that's huge. Because if you continue to feel alone, that's really going to prolong your healing journey.
Right.
So that was
Oh,
big for me.
that community piece, it really does change everything. Like that, it's the difference, I think, between the staying in isolation versus realizing that there are other people around you can make a huge difference. That's amazing. So did you start seeing a doctor about each of these? Like, did they put you on medication right away, or what was kind of the initial treatment or protocols that you that you tried?
Yeah, I did see a doctor. They did put me on medication. I didn't know I had fibromyalgia. I wasn't diagnosed with fibromyalgia until a couple of years later, till my fourth son.
Okay.
And I was diagnosed with the first three on my third kid. So, I mean, it wasn't too far long. That's usually how it works with autoimmune. You have to have
Mhm.
the DNA switch, and then you have to have like the perfect storm to actually like
Right.
have it happen.
Right.
Um, so I'm trying to remember what your question was again.
Yeah, just like what was the initial treatment?
Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, they did put me on a lot of different stuff. And if any of you guys have had that battle, I'm sorry. I
Mhm.
know that
The
is
roller
tough.
coaster.
Um, Sometimes the side effects, oftentimes the side effects are worse than the actual disease. And I found that to be my case. And I actually, before I met this other woman, I actually did get off my medication slowly. Like I didn't just take get off of it, but
Sure.
I just felt for me that it wasn't the right course.
Mhm.
But of course, it requires a lot more, if you are going to go that route. I would never recommend that unless you've talked with your doctor. So just a little disclaimer there. Don't just not take medication.
Right.
Because medication and therapy definitely have their place. But I'm a big believer in, and now even with my journey with all of this still kind of always being in the background, is I look for doctors who are willing to get to the root of it and not just cover it up, that actually wants to get me off the medication. So, there's a lot of holistic doctors out there that can really be an amazing alternative if you're finding that you're like me, where you're just kind of like, I don't want another medication. And again, please do what's necessary at first. Try the medication, but for me, it was more frustrating. I mean, I could barely keep my eyes open. I was so dizzy. So for me, that was not an option for treatment.
Yes, that makes so much sense. And I love, like you said, sometimes you have to start out at a certain place and get your body to balance before you can start experimenting with other things or trying different things. So you talked about like the desire to get to the root of what was going on, and that resonates so much with me. What did you, as you were going along with this, what did you uncover as some of the root causes?
Most of it was trauma, things that I had not dealt with, and really bad coping skills for stress. That was huge for me, was to really, I actually did the addiction recovery program, because, and I might make a few people upset with this, but depression to me is an addiction. You just get used to a certain way of thinking, and it just becomes a pattern, and it gets stronger. Those neural pathways get so deep. But what's great about having that knowledge is it's so easy to fix. Time consuming, but so easy to actually retrain those neural pathways and make new neural pathways. And so that was another thing that was life-changing for me. Was well, let me go back a little bit. So when I met these other women, one of the things that they talked about was affirmations, and I tried it and it didn't work. And I later found out, because you have to hear things several times before it actually makes sense. So, I wasn't ready then, but a couple of years later I was, and I was able to, I actually help women do this, is to make affirmations for them, because it needs to be based on these really deep beliefs. Like, you can't just borrow somebody else's affirmation.
Right. That's such a distinguishing thing, because like you can just read something that somebody else has written, but if it's not totally tailored to reverse your specific neural pathway, then it's not going to be as effective. How did you, and how when you've worked with other people to do this, how do you lead them through, what's the process of kind of designing your own way to change that thinking?
I mean, it takes a while. People have to journal. I always suggest that you write down your top thoughts, and it takes a while, because a lot of us are used to being on autopilot. I certainly was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on this autopilot that I wasn't good enough, that I was too sensitive, that there's something wrong with me. There's this real thing that happens with kids, especially with shame. And if it's not noticed, and it's not the parents' fault, I don't blame my parents, but it's something that I look for, because shame is so deep. It's really at the root of most disease, I think, because you're literally don't like yourself. So why would your body think that, that something shouldn't happen? It's not going to do what it's supposed to do if it's under attack. And so we have that power within us to overcome it, but also to just kind of make things a little bit worse. And I don't say that to make anybody feel bad, but it's the difference between saying I made a mistake and I am a mistake, so So for a lot of people, it's a tough journey to go on, but once you start realizing uh, the responsibility that you've played in it, the thoughts that are creating it, then it's so much easier to start taking back control and start getting healthier and enjoying life, and realizing that this as easily as it was created, it's able to get better.
Mm. That's just like so hopeful, because I think with chronic illness, it really, when you get a diagnosis, it feels like this is just your life now. Like there's no way that you can take that back. But if you're saying like you have power over that, I mean, I feel like that, to me, that would be the very first, like that needs to happen first before any progress is made, is just realizing that there is something you can do and you're not stuck in it. Did you feel stuck for a while, or
Oh,
did you initially?
yes. Oh, yes. I mean, it's part of the journey. It's part of the journey to grieve who you used to be.
Mhm.
And honestly, I didn't know who I was. So I didn't even know what I was grieving, except that I just couldn't be the mom that I wanted to be.
Yeah.
Um, my advice would just try not to stay there.
Yeah.
Try to get help to move past the grieving process, because you have to have the grieving process,
Mhm.
because you have lost something. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. You have.
Mhm.
Um, but it's also such a great teacher. And if you listen to it, it can take you on paths that you never thought were possible. And I mean, I never thought that I would try to start a business being
Mhm.
chronically ill. I'm still chronically ill, but I'm still trying to help busy moms navigate through chronic stress,
Mhm.
because it's important, and it's not something that can wait.
Mhm.
So you know, there's a reason for it. And when you get past the grieving process and you can start looking at not why it's happening to you, but why it's happening for you,
Mm.
then it can really start taking a turn. And really, I mean, I really try to love my life the way it is, and not try to fight what is. So
That just, oh my goodness, that is so big, because yeah, that when you're resisting, you're like running from it. But if you're letting it play a part in how it's shaping you and what it's leading you to, then you can almost view it as a gift. Like it seems crazy to think of it that way, but
yeah,
tell that you do think of it that way, because you wouldn't be as far as you are without that
it
mind.
took a long time though. So I don't want people to think that I woke up and
Sure.
was just like,
Like,
woohoo!
yay. Yeah. Yes. I love how realistic you are with it. Like it's not, and like you said, like you don't want to skip the grieving process, because then that's not healthy either. Then you're burying, and you want to go straight to everything's fine. And I think that's so wonderful. That's a great reminder to honor that part of the process, and that may take different time periods for different people, and that's just how it is. So has it been about a decade then since this all started? About 10 years,
Yeah.
you were saying. So what is life like now, compared to where it was back then?
Well, I wish I could say that I have found the magic cure. Um, I am not bedridden anymore, so that is huge. I can function. I can play with my kids.
Mhm.
I just have to guard my energy and realize my limitations, which was another grieving process for me. Like I really had to start listening to my mind and my body. I do what I call hourly check-ins, where I have an alarm and I stop and I breathe, because we all hold our breath. We're so busy that we're not breathing properly. So that's one thing you can do right now, is to start breathing properly. But I do that. I stop and I breathe and I check in, and I'm like, okay, how am I really doing? Am I exhausted? Do I need to take a nap? I really started noticing when I was tight, where I was tight, um, just so that I could honor my body, what it was telling me, because I believe that all of it is a message. The symptoms are a message, and if you ignore them, they're going to start screaming at you. You're going to have disease, headaches,
Mhm.
stomach aches. We all pop pills thinking that, that's what we're supposed to do, but that's your body talking to you.
Right.
And I'm not a doctor, so obviously always go to the doctor, but that's been huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
But my life pretty much, it's still pretty similar. I still struggle with depression and anxiety. Like I said, it's like a visitor, comes and goes, especially when I am dealing with stressful situations. I have a teenager, so so stress never really ends for any of us. But stress is not something to be feared, just like disease is not something to be feared. But I am slowly trying to add back to my diet. I had to take out a lot of things. I did the GAPS diet.
Okay.
And I would not, that's another thing I would not recommend, is don't try to do this on your own. Try to have somebody to help you if you need to make a diet change, because I tried to do it on my own and I made things so that when I tried to add things back in, I couldn't. So it's been about 4 years that I've been eating rice and a couple of veggies, some chicken, and I make my own broth. So it's challenging. Taking me anywhere is kind of high maintenance.
Yes, I can relate.
I have to plan ahead. But I'm just so much happier. I just go with the flow. If my body tells me that it's time to rest, like I'm in a fibromyalgia flare, like I try not to fight it anymore. I'm just like, okay, this is my body talking to me, and I'm gonna listen. And when I don't listen, I pay for it. When I listen, I'm able to get through it. So
yes. Yeah.
hopefully that answers your question.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah, that's amazing. I am very passionate about nutrition, and I sometimes I can do an overemphasis on nutrition, and I love how you're balancing that with with me right now. Even just the nutrition part is a really small piece to it. It's really more, like you said, dealing with the trauma and all of that. But just to hone in on the nutrition part, just briefly, are there any little suggestions or things that worked for you that you feel like has made a difference in how you feel physically and mentally, that's kind of rang true over the long haul, or has that changed? Or just what are a few things, diet, nutrition, pieces of advice you might share?
Definitely stay away from sugar. I know you guys are going to hate me for this,
So important.
but it is, at least the wrong sugars. Honey and maple syrup is great. I unfortunately can't do that yet. My body is still really oversensitive to it, but there's a lot of great recipes out there. The other one is to just be careful of gluten, because it's not really meant for any of us because of what they've modified it. So even if you don't have celiac, even if you're not dealing with disease as much, things are happening. You're still getting that, they call it a gut bomb for a reason. It really is not good for you. So those are the really two, like I said, celiac was a blessing for me because I was poisoning my body and I didn't even know it. So it's a tough one because gluten is in everything.
Yes, it is.
Wheat. And so, start anytime you make a diet change. I am definitely a proponent of feeling like you're adding to your life versus taking away. So you don't want to just like take away everything you love like I did. That was horrible. I had to go through a whole grieving process with that. I mean, I kind of had to do it because I was so sick. But if you can, like, do it so that you're just adding things in rather than taking away and then crowding out the bad. So that's my best advice, is to just like decide what you want to take out, but then just add like greens in, add veggies in, do something that you're going to love that'll start helping you not have those sugar cravings as much and stuff. And there's an emotional component, and I could talk about this separately, but there's an emotional component to sugar and why we crave it too. So, because it gives us those good feel-good hormones.
Sure.
So, but for me, that was definitely life-changing, got me out of bed. So So yeah, I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, but those were the really big ones for me.
Yeah, I think that that definitely applies to all sorts of different illnesses, and just general health is um yeah, taking control of what you're eating. And how do you stay motivated to eat the way that is good for your body? Are you ever tempted to just go back to any old thing?
Of course I'm tempted. I'm human, but I'm not tempted because I know what it'll do to me. It'll make me feel awful. I mean, I'm lucky in the fact that if I cheat, I know it.
Hmm.
So for me, there's not much motivation needed because I don't want to feel terrible.
Yeah.
So I won't do it. Um, it's actually kind of funny. My daughter has learned that I love the smell of things, so she'll bring me cake and I'll smell it and I'll sit there and I'll just enjoy it for a few minutes
Uh-huh.
and I'm good. I'm like, okay, it's almost just like eating it, and
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. Like I can imagine when I did eat it what it was like, and so it's kind of like a little experience for me, like a little moment I have. Um,
Mhm.
and I do dream of the day when I can have sweets and stuff again, but I'll never go back to as much as I ate it, and
Yeah.
you know, so.
Yeah. Oh,
But I
that
do have a dream.
you have a dream. Yes. Yes. But and yeah, I love how like you have a really healthy view of moderation, and like not just going toward an extreme, or and it's not about punishing yourself and like getting rid of everything, because I think that's the biggest thing is when you're making a diet change, usually you're thinking of the things you can't eat, but shifting that to adding in all the things that you can eat, you almost don't miss the things that you're having to give up. So that's a really
Yeah.
good reminder. That's really, really good. So what kind of, just kind of to wrap it up, I feel like we could go in so many other directions right now, but what
Yeah.
if someone, let's just kind of talk about people listening, if they're dealing with depression and anxiety, because I know with thyroid disease that's a symptom that can be very,
Mhm.
very intertwined in thyroid disease. So whether they have a diagnosis or not, depression and anxiety can be an issue. So what would you say to them, like if they're just now realizing that it's an issue and they want to start taking some control, what would be some of the first few things you would recommend for them?
Let me just take a deep breath here for a minute.
Absolutely. Take your time.
I get excited and my body thinks that I'm in danger, so I have to like
Mhm. Mhm.
take a couple of deep breaths to bring myself back down. And I also want to say something that is going to mean something to somebody, because I'm a firm believer that if it just helps one person, then I've done I've done the best that I can do. I would definitely say if you're just starting out, just recognize where you are, that you are just out, and that it is a discovery, it's a journey,
Mhm.
and find your tribe, find somebody who gets you,
Mhm.
and um, just do everything in your power to learn what's going on,
Mhm.
and um, just welcome whatever comes.
Mhm.
Don't fear it. Don't add fear to the disease
Mhm. Yeah.
because that just fuels it.
Mhm.
But just say, okay, this is what's going on. This isn't me, but
Mhm.
this is what's happening. And so now I'm going to decide what a healthy me is going to do
Mm.
with the cards I've been dealt.
Right. Mm. That's so, so good. Yeah, honoring, not trying to rush through to a solution or rush through to um, action even, but just honoring the process, taking that time. That's
Yeah.
really great advice.
And your body and your mind has done the best that it can at this point. You know, it's carried you to where you are.
Mhm.
So you get to decide too whether you want to keep going with the same thought patterns and with the same things that you've been doing, or if you want to make some changes.
Right.
It's really a beautiful process of listening to your mind, body, spirit, the inside out kind of approach. It can be really beautiful and really empowering and building for your self-worth if you realize it's for you and not against you.
That's beautiful. Do you have, you said, do you work with people on this? Do you have a website, a place that we can find you? We can post these links too, but if you want to just kind of share some of that now.
I have momshappinessblueprint.blogspot.com that I've been blogging for a while. I am in the process of moving everything over to one main website, but you can find me there, and Mom's Happiness Blueprint on Facebook, and Motivated Mamas with Christiane Rushton is my group. It's for moms that are dealing with stress and overwhelm, and you don't even have to have chronic illness to have stress and overwhelm. So so I really help people deal healthily with the stress, and be able to create the life that they want, because we have that power. We can have whatever we want. It's just, it doesn't always look like how we planned it to be.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh, that's wonderful. So yeah, anyone listening, if you want to connect more with Christy, and I will post these links on the video below, above. I'm not sure exactly where they will be positioned, but they will be on there. And you can follow up with her if her story resonated with you. So thank you so much, Christy. And this was just really a really great perspective for me, kind of different than I'm engrossed in the nutrition part so much that it's really helpful to kind of take a step back and look at the whole piece of the whole puzzle. So I really appreciate that. So
Yeah.
Any final thing you'd like to share? I don't want to cut you off from any. You said some really amazing things. So
I mean, I'm open to anybody. Message me on Mom's Happiness Blueprint. I don't ever want anybody to feel alone. So if you're just starting out, come find me, because I get a lot. When I say that, I really mean that. I've been through a lot in my life. It's just the tip of the iceberg that I've talked about, but you really can create what you want and change your life and love your life the way it is. So yeah, I really do care about people, and I really do want to build resilient moms so they can build resilient generations. That's my mission in life. So yeah, don't ever feel, if you're just feeling stuck and scared, come find me.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. I know that, like you said, if one person can be helped, but I'm sure, I have no doubt that there will be somebody, if not multiple, who will benefit from this. So thank you. All right. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and be sure to reach out if you would like to go deeper.